You're listening to the 𝗀𝗡𝐵 podcast, episode number 62. Why choosing kids' snacks feels so hard these days.
Hi there, I'm 𝗁𝗏 𝗏, and with over 20 years experience feeding children, including my own, I've learned all the secrets that busy mums need to get their children eating better and actually enjoying healthy foods. So a huge welcome to the 𝗀𝗡𝐵 podcast.
Hello, welcome back to another episode of the 𝗀𝗡𝐵. I'm really happy that you're here, and today we are talking about kids' snacks. And it's a never-ending topic, I think, in most households because, let's be honest, kids love to snack, especially the fussy eaters that don't necessarily fill up at main meals. So it's something that is at the top of most parents' lists is to find healthy snacks. And whenever I post a reel or a post on Instagram about snacks and healthy kids snacks, it always is a very popular post because as parents, we want those quick, easy ideas for kids snacks. And we want to know what snacks are good to buy in the supermarket because there's so much junk in the supermarket these days, and it's an absolute minefield, and it's really frustrating from my perspective because I see all the junk and I can decipher what's good and what's not good, and a lot of it is junk. And without realizing, many of us are feeding this to our children unknowingly, but it's supported by the big food companies that all they care about is making $1. And they don't care that it's just pouring rubbish into our kids. So it's a real bugbear of mine. And I'm on a mission to spread the word to inform parents about how we can actually decipher these misleading food labels and make better choices for our children. All you have to do is go to the supermarket muesli bar aisle and stand there and look at the gazillion options of muesli bars from top to bottom. You name it, there would be, what feels like hundreds of options. I'm not going to sit down there and count them all, but there are so many options, so many more than there used to be. And they are basically all different versions of each other. No, they're not all different versions of each other because some are high protein, some are high sugar, some are no sugar, but they are often using highly processed ingredients. And it's so confusing to try and find the right muesli bar for your family or the one that's going to be healthy, but that your children will also eat, because that's another drama, is actually getting them to eat it. The number of muesli bars that I've brought home because they've, in my view, ticked all the boxes, but then my son's like, nah, that's a no-go. It's a whole nother battle because you also need them to eat it and not rely on just the sugary muesli bars that they love. So it is a really tricky one, and I think snacks are right up there in terms of difficulties and stresses that parents have around feeding kids aside from dinner. But snacks are a confusing, frustrating world, and kids usually love those processed, white, salty, sugary packet snacks, which are the ones that are usually loaded with salt and really low in fiber and often so highly processed. They're fast sugar, so the sugar levels go up and then the sugar levels race down and they end up with this shark tooth-like blood sugar level, and it's not good for behavior, mood, concentration at school, tantrums, you name it. It's a recipe for disaster, but they love it. And the other thing that really annoys me is often these foods are loaded with artificial preservatives, colors, flavors. It's just so much stuff that is pouring into our kids, and I think it's changing, which is good, but I feel like maybe rewind 8 years, it was almost like a herd-like mentality. Everyone's doing it. Everyone's eating the same junky Oreos and crackers in the playground, and so it's accepted and it's okay. And look, there would definitely be many families, mine included, that would still have packets of food in the lunchbox that aren't necessarily great for them. But I feel like we're fighting a losing battle at the moment because food manufacturers are allowed to pour all this crap into our kids' food. Our kids love it, and the pester power is huge. We try our best as parents to feed our kids as best as we can, but sometimes they just want what are these crappy chicken flavored some sort of, not Dixie drumstick, they're worse than that, 𝗀𝗡𝘃𝗃 or something like that. These are highly processed, flavored, salty, crappy foods that, one of my son's friends must have them. And so he hits me up for them every time we go to this particular shop. And it must be because they sell them, 𝗀𝗡𝘃s or something like that. And yuck, they're gross. But anyway, I let him get them as a treat. He has them once every term maybe. But look, don't get me wrong. We're not angelic with the lunchbox. He would have stuff that's got too much sugar in it or flavors in it, especially if there's been a party and you've got leftover chips or leftover cake. And our lunchbox isn't perfect, and we shouldn't strive to have the healthy, perfect lunchbox because that's not real life anyway. What we need to do is try to make small tweaks that, when done consistently, make a big difference to your child's day, week, month, year life. And bit by bit, we are gradually, hopefully, changing their taste buds to accept healthier options. It's a challenge, and it really depends on how far along they already are with their taste preferences, because sometimes kids are so used to all the junky, crappy foods that it's really hard to unwind, especially with their taste preferences, because they're so used to, almost addicted to the salt and the sugar. So it's tricky. It's really tricky. And I feel so sorry for us as parents, me included, because I feel like we're really up against it on so many fronts. We're time poor, where we have a generation of children now that demand of us, and I feel like I get spoken to in a way that I would have never have spoken to my parents. And I just feel like it's a different generation. It's probably my fault, but I feel like this generation is very different in so many ways. And the amount of snacks and processed snacks that are available these days compared to when I was a child is 10,000 times, if that's even the right number. I don't know. But it's just astronomically bigger, multiplied many times. Because back then, I think there might have been a couple of muesli bars to choose from, but really you just snacked on fruit, cereal. I remember coming home and having things like dim sims. Oh my God, now I would never even dream of it because it's got pork. I probably had leftovers, just more real food than so much of the packet stuff that's available now. Having said that, I do remember every now and again we had that multicolored popcorn. Oh my gosh. And we were allowed Fruit Loops in the school holidays. I do remember that. And I loved Fruit Loops in the school holidays. Aside from that, the everyday foods, which is what counts, right? It's not the treats here and there that matters. It's the everyday foods. That's what's important. And that's what I think has really changed. I just feel like manufacturers are just getting away with so much these days. And thank goodness, finally, there's going to be a reform of our baby, toddler, child foods in the Australian supermarkets, and how manufacturers can actually, not so much how, but what they can put in them and how they label them. Because at the moment, there is no restriction on how much salt and sugar that they can put in our baby and toddler food. They could just pour as much in as they want. And secondly, it's so misleading in terms of when you pick up a label, it's really hard to work out just by looking at it whether it's healthy or not. I've got a few great stats for you I wanted to share. So the first stat is that 90% of toddler foods fail to meet World Health Organization standards. So that's 9 in 10 toddler foods on Australian supermarket shelves fail to meet the World Health Organization's nutrition recommendations. And this is particularly due to high sugar content and inadequate nutrient profiles. Now, I was interviewed a couple of times actually on Sunrise Channel 7 about this, and it is a big issue. And as I said, as a result of some of this data and these research studies, there is going to be a big review and reform, hopefully, of the ingredients that can go into our children's food, and also how it's labeled. And the rules around misleading marketing will hopefully become a lot tighter, so they won't be able to do it. Another stat, snack food consumption increased by 10% between 2018 and 2019, and 2022 to 2023. Australians' consumption of snack foods grew by 10% per person. with notable increases in potato chips 16% and chocolate 10%. So that's Australians, adults and children, but that's quite significant that 10% is gone up by. And that's just in the last, 5 years, 2018 to 2023, 5 years. Another statistic, over 40% of children lack adequate fibre intake. Data indicates that more than 40% of Australian children do not meet the recommended daily intake of dietary fibre, which is essential for digestive health and overall well-being. So I talk a lot about gut health and microbiome. In fact, I only did an episode on Sunrise 2 days ago on the microbiome and the importance of feeding our gut bugs with healthy fibres to keep our gut microbiome in good balance, to keep the balance of good and bad bugs, because that's so crucial for health. But if 40% of our kids aren't getting enough fibre to feed their gut bugs, then their gut is not going to be working to its full potential, which means their health, their brain, none of that's going to be working to its full potential because it's all linked. It's all related. So it's really important that our children are getting enough fibre to fuel their gut bugs so that their gut-brain connection is as good as it can be, so that their cholesterol is good as it can be, their blood sugar level. There's so many effects of good gut health on the rest of our body systemically. It is the center of our systemic health. So important that we're getting enough fibre and our children are getting enough fibre. But because of crappy snacks, it's contributing to an inadequate fibre intake. And look, I'm going to talk to you a little bit later about where you can find a really great supermarket snacks guide. I've created it. It's a fantastic starting point. I've got over 80 good, healthy supermarket kid snacks for you. And as I said, I'll talk about it a bit later, but I've got a great intro offer for you that I'll share with you because it's just good to have those quick and easy grab and go options. You don't have to stand there for 20 minutes analyzing all of the food labels because that's confusing in itself anyway. Back to our stats. Less than 7% of children meet vegetable intake recommendations. That doesn't really surprise me. But again, it just goes to show how much we're struggling to get good nutrition into our kids. And the more crappy snacks they're having, the less healthy snacks they're having, the less healthy homemade carrot and hummus or celery and peanut butter. Just those basic snacks that we might have had more of when we were growing up. Instead, they're going for just another packet of barbecue shapes. And not to demonize barbecue shapes because everyone can have barbecue shapes, but they just need to fit in and they just need to be in moderation, not going into their mouths every day. Another stat, packaged baby and toddler foods can carry up to 20 marketing claims. And this is where there needs to be much tighter restriction around what can be said on food labels. It's called greenwashing, where companies can make claims that make food sound healthier than it is. And they can really blur the lines between what is actually allowed to be said and what shouldn't be said. But for example, the Rafferty's Gardens yogurt buds, which are literally worse than white chocolate, they are that high in sugar. On the front of the label, it will say 97% fruit and yogurt, which is absolute BS. And they can still get away with it because of shonky food labeling laws. Basically, they find the loopholes and they use it. And they have made millions out of this because it seems healthy. And to parents, it seems healthy. But the children are chowing it down and it's literally higher in sugar than milk chocolate. So it's incredible. And that's what I mean by greenwashing. It makes it sound healthier than it is. And they use pretty pictures of gardens. And Rafferty's Gardens, I am going to name and shame because they're actually pretty guilty of making food look healthier than it is. And it's not good. They'll actually concentrate up the sugar and use apple juice concentrate to sweeten, say, a fruit bar. And they'll be allowed to say no added sugar, which is absolute rubbish because they have concentrated up the sugar. That's not just natural peach or pear or sultanas. You've actually concentrated up the sugar in fruit juice concentrate, but they're still at the moment currently allowed to say no added sugar. Another statistic. So in this World Health Organization study, none of the assessed infant and toddler foods met World Health Organization promotional standards. And this again related to how they promoted the food and the labeling and the marketing on the food. So it just Goes to show how deceived we are, especially in Australia, which is really sad and really frustrating given we're a first world country. Many ready-made infant foods exceed recommended sugar levels, and this comes back to the fact that they can concentrate up the sugar with apple pastes, fruit paste, fruit juice concentrates, and still say no added sugar. The thing is, having too many of these snacks can actually lead to nutrient deficiencies in our children because they are filling up on all these lower nutrition snacks, and that means that they're actually not getting fiber from an apple or calcium from yogurt or a plant yogurt that's been calcium fortified or calcium and fiber from edamame or baked beans. So we just need to try and strip it back a bit to how it used to be. It's just gone so far the other way. And that's why I think it's just so hard for parents, because there's so much deception. There's so many salty, sugary, crunchy kid snacks out there. And we as parents are time poor. So it's a recipe for disaster because we grab these foods because we know the kids like them. They're marketed as healthy. We think they're healthy, but they're not. And it's a vicious cycle. So it's something that it's something that we're all facing as parents, but we need to try to pause, take a step back and just look at what's going into your supermarket cart or supermarket trolley if you're in the supermarket. Okay, I want to pause just for a second to let you know about something very important. If your child's eating is driving you nuts, it might be time for a new feeding plan. A plan that gets your kids eating well with no battles or bribes at the table. If you're a busy, time-poor mum who's tried everything to get her child to eat better, but nothing is working, then listen up. It's not your fault, but there is a new way, light at the end of the tunnel. I've been there, and I know that there is a new way. The thing is, there's no feeding kids rulebook, which is exactly why I've used my 23 years experience as a paediatric dietitian and 12 years experience as a mother, including my own fussy eater, to create my own method to improve my children's eating habits and nutrition that actually works. I've helped thousands of parents over the past 23 years to improve their children's eating habits and reduce the stress and burden of feeding. The mum guilt is real. I get it. Creating a healthy feeding plan is the only way to get your child eating healthier and end the food stress and worry for good. The feeding burden is so real. It's so overwhelming. I've felt it. I've lived it. But I want you to know that there's absolutely hope that things will change for you. It did for me, and I know that it can for you too. I'm here to stop your food stress, boost your feeding confidence, and end the battles for good. I'm here to give you freedom from worry, frustration, overwhelm at mealtimes, from the battles and the bribes, freedom from it all. Click below in the show notes to take your step towards feeding freedom. All right, let's get back into it. A little bit more attention every 6 months to change the online order or to change what's going in your trolley could make a big difference to the days and the weeks and the month and your child's taste preferences, your child's fiber intake, your child's intake of food, additives and preservatives and colors. In my recent 5 Days to Healthier Kids challenge that I ran, one of the days, day 3, was all about food additives and colors. And it's just phenomenal how many artificial colors are still allowed in Australia when they're banned in other states. In America, they're banned in 9 states of America. There's food warning statements on foods that contain these 6 artificial colors in the UK. But Australia, it's a free-for-all. We're still allowed to pour all the rubbish we want into our kids. And the thing is that many of us parents, we're aware that there is a lot of junk that goes into these products for our kids. And it makes us feel guilty. And that's so unfair because we want our kids to eat good food, but they love this food. And I know that if we were a bit tougher and stricter and just said no to all of it, you're eating the celery and the peanut butter and you're eating the cucumber and cheese sandwiches and you're having popcorn, and if you're strict and you say no to any of the snacks, then, I guess then they're going to have less of those snacks. And look, I was very much like that for probably the first 10 years of my kids' life. But as they get older, it gets harder. And then for many, they see what their friends are having at school, and many kids are having a lot of processed foods from kindergarten reception, year 1, year 2. And they come home and they're like, I want the packet of Oreos like such and such. Or why don't you ever give me one of those Jumpies or Joeys, whatever they are. And so as parents, they make you feel guilty for not giving them the crappy foods, but you don't want to give them the crappy foods. But then they start refusing the healthy stuff because they want the crappy food. So it's hard. And you as a parent feel guilty, and I certainly feel guilty when another high sugar chocolate chip muesli bar goes into my son's lunchbox, but I know he loves them and I know he'll eat them, but it's not good. So I'm becoming less inclined to buy them because I know that he'll just go mad for them, and he'll not only eat them at school, he'll have one after school, and so they all add up and the box just goes really quickly. So it's about really being mindful and intentional with your purchasing behaviors around snacks, because once it's in the house, it gets really hard to say no or to moderate. And often it will just go really quickly and will just contribute to a higher sugar intake and more fast sugars for our kids. And you might be listening to this podcast and thinking, yeah, Karina, but I don't even know how to work out whether a snack's healthy or not. Because I guess it's, where do you start? Do you look at energy or fat? If you were born in the 70s or 80s, you were probably brainwashed with fat and everything had to be low fat. Whereas nowadays, it's not so much about the fat. It is saturated fat, but it's more about the sugar, food additives and colors and preservatives, and goodness knows what else gets poured into our kids' food. That's so confusing. Where do you start? What do you look at? So I get it if you're frustrated because you don't want your kids to eat rubbish, but you're not really sure what is good and what's not good. And because it doesn't make it any easier, because the packet will go, oh, it's 97% fruit and yogurt, and you think it's good. So, as parents, you feel guilty, but it's not your fault, because I just feel like we're up against it on so many fronts. So what do you do? So when you're standing in the supermarket or looking at the online order, depending on whether you're doing online shopping or not, I recommend really trying to pay attention to two things. Pay attention to the ingredients list and pay attention to the food table. And that's a great place to start. So I'm not saying you need to spend hours doing this, but maybe just spend half an hour once every 3 or 6 months, just really having a look. I mean, look, if you want to cut that time down to 3 seconds, basically you just need to buy my supermarket snacks guide, and you've got all the breakfast cereal options, all the muesli bars, the crackers, ice creams, and all the other bits and pieces, all the other snacky type foods that are good for your child. So literally, that's the quickest and easiest way. And I'll put the link in the show notes. At the moment, I've got a special introductory offer. So click on the link and you'll be able to grab that special introductory offer. And that's for a limited time. If you're listening to the podcast and it's only been released recently, then grab the introductory offer. And if not, grab it anyway, because it's a highly valuable product and it will literally save you hours of looking at labels, and it will save you worry and guilt that your children are eating crappy foods, because these snacks are going to be much healthier options for them. So check that link out in the show notes. So what I would look for is, when I look at the ingredients list, I would look for a short ingredients list, ideally under 10, under 5 is even better. Many muesli bars are like 20, 30 plus ingredients. So the shorter the ingredients list, the better. And ideally, it's got real food ingredients in there, nothing that you don't know the name of or that your grandmother wouldn't know the name of. The second thing I would do is I would look at the nutrition table. Now, that nutrition table will have a list of energy, carbohydrate, protein, fat, saturated fat will be in there, and that's the one that you want to keep down a bit lower. Then it will have any other vitamins or minerals that have been added, and they won't necessarily list all of them, but they will list some of the main ones. Now, you will have the information on those nutrients for the serve size and also per 100 mils or 100 grams. Now, I encourage you to compare products per 100 mils or 100 grams, because that's the way that you can compare 2 yogurts or 2 breakfast cereals in terms of the sugar or the fiber. That's also how I would compare protein or fiber. Now, fiber is a very important one. As I said, 40% of our kids do not get enough fiber, and that is so important for gut health. So I would definitely be looking at fiber per 100 grams and trying to choose the higher fiber option. When you look at the ingredients list in whole grain cereals, that will typically make it a higher fiber product than something that will say rice or corn at the beginning. So the 3 things that I would start with is to, number 1, look at the ingredients list. Try and choose products with a shorter ingredients list with real food ingredients. Number 2, I would check and compare the sugar per 100 grams. And number 3, I would compare the fiber per 100 grams. Because ultimately, if you're choosing lower sugar and higher fiber choices, that's going to be better for blood sugar level control, better for gut health, better on so many fronts. Look, not all kids' snacks have to tick all the boxes, because our kids are going to want a Tim Tam, or they are going to want a packet of barbecue shapes, but it's about making it fit within the context of a healthy balance intake and making those foods, the sometimes foods, not the 3 or 4 packets of processed foods every single day. So it's about saying, yes, you can have a packet of Oreos or barbecue shapes, but we're not having them every day. We're going to have some popcorn perhaps as a better option for the packaged snack. And yeah, you can have some chocolate biscuits sometimes, but again, it's about the frequency. It's about the messaging and how we talk to our children about food and about snacks. And look, I go into all of this detail all the time with my members inside Nourishing Kids in our live calls and in my tutorials inside Nourishing Kids. So if you really want to deep dive into actually how to talk to kids about food, how to raise healthy, competent eaters, then join Nourishing Kids. And I'll also pop the link in the show notes too, so you can check out Nourishing Kids. And I would gladly welcome you aboard, because the more parents that I can support and educate and teach how to nourish their children, we can just grow a healthier future generation quicker. Now, food additives, preservatives, flavors, that's a whole other conversation, but a very important one again. Now, recently I have shared some information, especially inside Nourishing Kids. In one of my recent calls, I did a masterclass on food additives, preservatives, and I've got all the cheat sheets inside Nourishing Kids on which ones are the worst and which ones should really be avoided, even though they're still allowed in our kids' food, in all of our food really. Which ones should be avoided and which ones are still okay. But food additives and preservatives are another problem, and I think it's something to be really mindful when you do choose a shorter ingredients list. Often you do cut out a lot of the food additives, but something else to be mindful of. I don't have the scope to go into that today. As I said, joining Nourishing Kids, you'll get all that information about how to choose those healthy choices for your child. But if you want a little starting point, as I said, grab that supermarket snacks guide, and it will definitely give you a good taste of what you can then get inside Nourishing Kids, and it will be a good starting point for you. So that link will be in the show notes. That's really designed to be a quick and easy resource for all parents, so that together we can fight these big food companies and vote with your purse or wallet or iPhone and say no to purchasing this rubbish food for our kids all the time, even though it's marketed as healthy, and start saying no to stuff that you think is fruit and yogurt when it's really not. So I'm here to help uncover all of the deceit. And if you've got a particular food you want me to review, then please flick me an email or send me a link on Instagram, because I do my Friday food reviews online, and I'm always happy to help out with particular popular foods that people want me to review. But look, again, if you really want a deep dive into reviewing things in your pantry all the time, then we do a lot more of that inside Nourishing Kids as well. We've got a private chat group where people will send me pictures and say, Karina, what do you think about this? We'll share new product information. It's really a one-stop shop to support you feeding your child. As I said, the link will be in the show notes. But look, I'll wrap it up there. I wanted to dedicate this episode to making you feel a little less alone around the frustration with feeding kids, because I feel it too. My kids get home, and my son especially, he'll just go to the pantry and he'll just pull out another chocolate muesli bar. And I know that the sugar level is just going up and up, and it's really stressful to know that when you're busy, they're just going to grab another bar. And of course, it would be better if you had the time to prepare a healthy snack plate and get out the hummus and the carrot sticks and all that. But sometimes you're so busy that you haven't prepared a healthy platter. And so they're just going and grabbing another packet, and you just feel so guilty. So please don't feel alone, because we're all in this together. But if you can start to leave one poor option on the shelf and replace it with one slightly healthier option, then it's going to make a big difference over the weeks and the months. If you can start to increase the fiber a little, and you can make a healthy snack plate a couple of times a week, it's going to help. It's all going to help small changes done consistently will all add up, but it just depends on what's available in terms of your time at the moment. But please don't feel guilty. You're doing the best you can. And if you can make one slight improvement, that's great. And I think you need to be kind to yourself. And the fact that your child is still fed, they're being tucked into bed at night, they're warm, they're loved. There's a lot of good things that we're doing for our kids. But snacks are sometimes just a really big bugbear. And if we can make some slightly healthier changes, then great. But at the end of the day, we have to remember that we're doing the best we can. And it's work in progress for all of us, and me included, myself included. So I'll wrap it up, and I will look forward to chatting with you very soon. I hope you have a beautiful week. Bye for now.